Things are not going well for the Tory party, which, in overall, shall we say, normal times, is almost certainly, definitely a very good thing for, well, anyone who isn't a Tory party supporter. But big blows today, and even more worries probably at Tory HQs. Obviously, we are now counting down to May the 5th, to when we get the local elections this week. And normally local elections pass without a fuss. There is never any, shall we say, big significant changes. Some councils might change hands, but over really the last couple of years, when you look at local council elections, nothing ever dramatic really happens. Yes, there might be like one or two cities that might change hands, or there might be a significant swing somewhere, but it's very sort of localized, never really affects the national mood or issues. But this one in particular, as we've been noting from some of our coverage of people on the doorsteps, what they've been saying about this local elections, it is being viewed as a referendum on Boris's leadership. And that if you vote Tory, then you are tacitly, supporting what the Tory party has been doing and what they've been up to. And everything else, vote against them, is, saying you do not support them. And then there are Tories in the middle who are saying, I'm just not even going to bother voting this time, which, as we've said before, is a really interesting phenomenon, especially for a right-wing party. And as we've said before, right-wing parties, or at least people on the right, get out and vote regardless of what is normally going on in their party. So it's really interesting to see this phenomenon and how this could all come together tonight, or at least on the 5th. And I am planning to do an election live stream on that night. I think we're starting at 9 o'clock, and we'll go till whenever we think things are finished. But I wouldn't expect to see at least any action till maybe about 10 o'clock-ish. That's normally when reports start to come in. The polls will close then, and we'll probably get some early exit polls and stuff like that. So we'll talk over that. I have obviously extended the invite to some other people. See if they will have maybe some special guests joining us. I don't know. Like I say, local elections aren't very, shall we say, very well known for excitement, shall we say, compared to the general election. But this could be quite interesting, because if Boris gets absolutely slammed, this will be yet another indication from the Tories he has to go. So, as always, we jump into some very interesting polls, again, in a Tory heartland area. And we'll have to see, again, how this rolls out, how this plays out, because things could get very interesting very fast, I think, on the 6th of May. So before we go jumping into this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And also down below, there are links to my Patreon page, and there's one upstation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, now there is the YouTube subscription thing, and also the YouTube thanks thing as well. So, thank you for, again, all the people who do support the channel for that as well. So on with this then. This comes from The Guardian with the title of "Porn Shame Adds to the Tory Woes in Southwest as the Party Fears Poll Blow." The market town of Tiverton, which became prosperous in the 16th and 17th centuries thanks to its thriving wool trade, is usually a very tranquil kind of place. But it was an uncomfortable spot to be in on Saturday, as the townfolks digested the news that their MP, Neil Parish, was under the investigation for allegedly watching pornography in the House of Commons. Like I say, it all came out very, very quickly. I was wondering where this story was going to go. I wondered if this story had just been leaked by the Tories just to try and put off a bit of distraction. But when you think about it, this story just adds to the more Tory ridiculousness that we've been seeing for the past couple of weeks. But and where all this goes, it's hard to say. That's a different question entirely. Like after on the 6th, and what happens on the 6th, We do not know. But needless to say, it could be very, very interesting. As I said, things could get very interesting very quickly. It's a disgrace, said Peter Moore, 74, a retired engineer who had lived in Devon all his life, apart from the 6 years serving in the county regiment. Of course he should resign. People used to fall on their sword, but they don't now. He should resign, and Boris Johnson should resign. It's Trumpism. People don't care now. There used to be honour. There's no honour now, apart from the honour among thieves. Ken, very interesting. Paul Graham, at 54, a former mayor of Tiverton, heard Moore talking and even couldn't resist stopping and leaping in with a completely different take, saying, "In this country where innocent until proven guilty," he said. Graham, who works in manufacturing, warmed to this theme, saying, "It's upsetting for the town, but we don't want a by-election. I voted for Neil 3 times, and I'd vote for him next time if I'd get the chance." He won't. Of course, by that afternoon, Parish had resigned. The situation was that, funnily enough, it wasn't tractors I was looking at, he told the BBC. I did get into another website, and that had a very similar name, and I watched it for a bit, which I shouldn't have done. But my crime, the biggest crime, is on another occasion I went in a second time. That excuse will go down in history, I think, as one of like the bizarrest of all things. You know, I was just looking at, Ukrainian tractor memes. What? I am lost for words. I'm genuinely lost for words every time I see that excuse. I really am. Of course, this weekend, the story about Parish's watching porn in the Commons is the latest off-grid disaster to hit Boris Johnson and the Tories, with just 4 days to go until the crucial local elections. If the Conservatives do badly on Thursday, many of Parish's former colleagues could be tempted to submit letters of no confidence to Sir Graham Bradley, calling on Johnson to go, triggering what could be the beginning of the end for the Prime Minister. And the West Country was already looking very difficult enough for Johnson as Partygate, the cost of living crisis, and other Tory sleaze scandals made this campaign and claims just to be getting on with the job and delivering for the people of British people ring rather hollow. On Friday, the rural northeastern figures of Towton in Somerset were desperately needed new housing is spreading around meadows, cricket fields, and other cider orchard. Again, there is still little enthusiasm for the Tory offer. Kim Ledden, a hairdresser, said that she would be switching to the Lib Dems in the Thursday's local elections. The Tories don't tell the truth. Boris Johnson said, "We don't have parties," but they did have parties, she said, while being canvassed by the Lib Dems. One of them sprawling no one of the sprawling new build estates. And it's just not that. Everything is rising. Bills, gas, electric, fuel, and they are not helping us. They're not putting anything in place for the future. Again, as we've said multiple times before, the Tories do not care about long-termism, that they just aren't interested. Other long-term voters other long-term Conservative voters on the private development were even having their doubts too. The concern's obviously bad news for Johnson because the Lib Dems are eyeing a big comeback across large parts of the southwest, and the Tory-run Somerset County Council is a key target. Dave Cardy, 52, a former police officer who now delivers prescriptions, said that he had had enough of Johnson. "I thought he would become a sensible prime minister, but he has just carried on bumbling his way through life. Really, we need a grown-up in charge. Boris's time is done," he said. Look north, and of course, very similar views are being expressed. And on Friday, behind the red wall, that Johnson and his party breached with devastating effect back in the 2019 general election. The results in councils such as Kirklees, which takes place in Huddersfield and Wakefield, will be very scrutinised as Labour seeks to win back control. Across the council area, views are mixed on the Labour leader Keir Starmer's appeal, and is by no means all going his way. But there are some signs that the opinion is slowly shifting in Labour's direction. A hairdresser in Birstall, who asked not to be named, said she didn't see a way back for Johnson because he was completely guilty and knew what he was doing. She added, "If you've lied about something, then there's always going to be something to mistrust." Georgina Marshall, who switched from Labour to the Conservatives at the last general election, was dismayed by Johnson for very personal reasons. He carries on and carries on. I had a Christmas where I couldn't see my mum. I didn't see my 90-year-old grandma for 2 years. Meanwhile, he's partying all with his friends. And as I've said this before, people who dismiss this whole thing that, oh, Partygate's not an issue, that there isn't this anger. Oh, it's there. It's palpable. Trust me, if you go up north, it's there. All these red wall conservatives know it's there. And they are terrified of this anger. Absolutely terrified. Labour could retake Kirklees Council by gaining just 3 of the 23 seats up for election after it slipped into no overall control for three defections back in 2020. But failure to do so will be seen as evidence that the Red Wall will be stubbornly and difficult to try and reconquer. Millions of voters will go to the polls across the UK on Thursday, with at least 6,800 seats being contested, including all council seats in Scotland and Wales. In Northern Ireland, the first election to the Assembly will be held since the UK's withdrawal from the EU, and the England elections will also take place in all London boroughs, with 33 of the 36 metropolitan boroughs, 60 out of the 181 district councils, and 21 out of the 58 unitarian authorities. And again, that will be something else we will be watching on the night as well, which way Northern Ireland will go. It's very, very likely Sinn Féin will gain a majority, and that will cause problems because the DUP are not very open to power sharing, and that will cause other problems going further down the line. Inevitably, of course, Labour, which did very well when most of these seats were last contested in 2018, is downplaying its chances both regionally and nationally. Labour activists are trying to pour cold water on their idea of the party conquering the Tory strongholds of both Wandsworth and Westminster in London, while the Tories are saying that Starmer's party should make huge gains at this point in election cycle. Meanwhile, back in Tiverton, there was very much dismay that the quiet had been disturbed for all the wrong reasons. This weary sense that under Johnson and his team, pardon me, and his team, that it would just never end. Katie Orkney, an ecologist who's walking through the town with a 4-year-old daughter, summed it up like this. This sums up what everybody thinks about the government. Another shocking incident in a long line. I think it's time it just shows how touched they are out of members of the elite are with normal society. They think they can get away with things that ordinary people couldn't. This is a brilliant publicity for our town. It put Tiverton, though, in a very bad light. It's not good for the country's image abroad, and it's not good for society. Though he lives on a farm and across the border in Somerset, Parish is a well-known figure in Tiverton. He was first elected over 12 years ago, and since then has doubled his majority. In North Devon, the MP, Celine Saxby, said that Parish had always been a very loyal and supportive colleague, but she expressed shock, saying nobody wanted to think that their MP is sat on the green benches watching videos full stop. Certainly not that kind of video. Happily, though, for the Tories in the Mid-Devon District Council, which is based in Tiverton, councillors are not up for election this spring. I guess that's a good thing, said Ray Ranford, a senior Conservative currently serving as the chairman of the council. At the indoor market, Jane Hall summed up much of the anger, saying, when people are scrimping and scrapping by, he's sat there apparently watching porn. He should be he should be sacked. But he's got Boris as a role model, and he was having a party when people were dying. And as I've said before, do not underestimate the anger that is going on here. It's very, very palpable up here in the north. And I can only really speak, for up here and the areas around me. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same down south as well. So these elections could be very interesting. The Tories have already put out they might lose about 800 seats. Could they? Could we see a very substantial wipeout? It's possible, but we'll have to see. We will have to see what happens. Who knows? But needs to say, the last thing Boris needs this week is yet another scandal to break. And I highly suspect that there will probably one breaks before Thursday. Like I say, this is Boris Johnson. He attracts scandals like a magnet, But we'll have to see how these local elections will indeed seal Boris's fate on Friday. And, well, what happens next after that? Who knows? So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page and a donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And of course, the YouTube subscriptions that are open down below, as well as the thank you button as well. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.